Welcome back to DataBytez, your source for data-driven principles. Today's topic is mindset, specifically do what you fear. Oftentimes we spend a lot of life being afraid, but by the end of this, I hope you kind of come to a point where, yeah, fear has its place, it had its purpose, but it's kind of out of touch with what goes on in the modern world and why it holds you back from being what you were meant to be, whatever that is. So let's kind of dive into it here. So fear, as I said, is an emotion out of sync with the modern world. Fear played a pivotal role in our survival as a species. Nature is ruthless and uncaring. It's a good thing to be afraid. I remember one of the things that really sticks out to me in my mind when I think about how ruthless nature can be is that we as people, we care a lot about, I guess, the sanctity of life, to put in that regard, and for good reason. Life is kind of a special thing, but in the context of nature, I remember seeing, I believe it was like an elk or something like that, and a cheetah was eating the elk's baby right in front of it, perched on a rock that the elk couldn't get to. So it just had to witness its baby being eaten. And that kind of brutality, that coldness, is kind of what characterizes nature. We often tend to romanticize it, thinking, oh, nature's so great, get in touch with nature. But nature is a cold place. Survival of the fittest is really survival of the fittest, and spending so much time away from it, so much no longer being subject to that with our technology and everything, really makes us think, oh, nature must have been. No, it's not. It's not that great. It was a good thing to be afraid all the time. And that brings us to the next part. We are no longer in the wilderness. So we no longer have to be as afraid as we used to be as a result of leaving this dangerous environment. The reality is we've never been safer. Sometimes if you look at the news, you might think the world is getting a little bit worse, like we're progressing, but there's still not that much progress being made. But in reality, no, the world has never been a better place. If you really want to get into the subject, there's a great book called Factfulness, and it kind of dives into the statistics of that. That's really deserves to be its own video, and talking about how our perception of the world is very different from the actuality of it. Like, most people aren't living in poverty. I think it's about maybe 9% or less of the world is actually living in extreme poverty, which has gone down from, I think, 50% from the 1960s or something like that, 40%, almost the majority of the world. It's really changed a lot. The world is just a much better place thanks to globalization. So with the lack of real threats, we tend to create them. We allow our fear circuitry, which is very prominent in our minds, to be hijacked by the most mundane of events. So like an IM from your boss. You get an IM, you're like, oh my God, my heart starts beating. Speaking in front of people, or even something like, oh my God, someone unfollowed me on Instagram or something like that. Like, these things can create a sense of fear, like there's a perceived threat, when there really isn't one. And the result of allowing these fears to manifest this way, is that we're left with a kind of general anxiety towards the world. And it just underlies everything. We're kind of a little bit afraid of at all times. So we kind of need to change that. We cannot let ourselves, this circuitry, take over us. And speaking on that physiologically, there's a great book called Emotional Intelligence, and it goes into the anatomy of our brain a little bit. And so there's this, and I might be misquoting slightly, because I'm definitely not a master of the brain, but he goes on to explain that the amygdala, which kind of controls these fear-centered responses, they're more of a primal responses, has a sort of shortcut. So if you were to think about it this way, most often things kind of are processed consciously and then we choose to act. But with the amygdala, kind of like how you might put your hand on something hot and then pull your hand away before you actually realize it's hot because it would take too long and you'd burn yourself. If there's something worth being afraid, it kind of bypasses this conscious thought and starts making you act. And the reason for it is that if you had a tiger jumping out of you in the forest, you wouldn't have time to say, oh, what is that? Is that a tiger? I should move out of the way. No, things need to process a lot faster. So the amygdala has the shortcut to be like, hey, fear, move out of the way. And so, again, we are wired after millions of years of evolution to naturally be afraid, because fear is a pivotal emotion to feel in order to survive the harshness of the wilderness. So moving on from this, let's get some perspective. And so our perspective here, there we go, comes from the 50th Law from Robert Greene and 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson. And it says civilization depended on this ability to foresee and forestall dangers from the environment. Out of fear, we also developed religion and various belief systems to comfort us. Fear is the oldest and strongest emotion known to man, something deeply inscribed in our nervous system and subconscious. Over time, however, something strange began to happen. The actual terrors that we face began to lessen in intensity as we gained increasing control over our environment. But instead of our fears lessening as well, they began to multiply in number. We started to worry about our status in society, whether people liked us, or how we fit into the group. We became anxious for our livelihoods, the future of our families and children, our personal health, and the aging process. Instead of a simple, intense fear of something powerful and real, we developed a kind of generalized anxiety. It was if thousands of years of feeling fear in the face of nature could not go away. We had to find something at which to direct our anxiety, no matter how small or improbable. So, again, if we look at what's written, and again, this kind of consistently throughout, is that our fears, we kind of naturally crave to fear something, almost like we naturally crave to look for the wrong. Not to divert too much from here, but again, I'm just reading at the current time of this recording, there's a book called Factfulness I'm reading, and he even talks about this negativity instinct that is ingrained in us, where even if we see the world is getting better, we want to focus on the negative. And this comes into a bunch of reasons, is that even journalism, it sells more to share the negative stories, the things that go wrong. People don't really want to hear, ironically enough, the things that go right as much as they do what goes wrong. We're just drawn to it. I guess some kind of self-defeating prophecy, right? It's like, oh, you see, the things are not going well, but we'll ignore the pile of evidence saying that things are improving. We just don't want to see it. And so just like, oh, there's no reason to be afraid, or maybe there is, but we shouldn't be as afraid. We're better off. No, we're going to point it to something. We're going to create our fears because we just need something to be afraid of. And so here's some common fears. So we have the fear of failure. Probably the biggest killer of ambition. No one likes to fail. So rather than risk that feeling failure, we just don't start. We don't do anything. Fear of embarrassment. We don't like to look like a fool, so best to avoid any embarrassing actions. Fear of ridicule. If being embarrassed wasn't bad enough, looking like the fool, then being actually made fun of is 1,000 times worse. Fear of ostracization. I cannot say that word. We are afraid we will no longer be accepted by the group. We don't want to engage in any behavior that doesn't neatly fall in societal norms. So we kind of censor ourselves, sometimes censor our natural personality because we don't want to not fit in. And then fear of inadequacy, the fear of not being good enough. Perhaps you have a great idea, but you don't think you're the one who can pull it off. You just feel that you're just not enough. something that I personally just kind of struggle with myself. Out of all these fears, probably that one is the biggest one. So where does that lead us? It's to recognize the simple truth that all these fears are imaginary. They just hold you back from doing the incredible things you were meant to do. I once came across this guy. It was like for a sales position. And he said something. I didn't stick around. It wasn't my kind of thing, but he said something that really resonated with me, and I've kept it, and I repeat it to myself, and during these moments of flooding, emotional flooding, and you might not know you might know the feeling. It's when your heart rate all of a sudden jumps up. Like, I don't know, you get a call from your boss and he starts telling you something, and all of a sudden you just feel your heart start racing more. Usually it's when, for me personally, it's like when I'm trying to tell them, like, no, hey, look, you're wrong. Bosses never like being told that they're wrong, but sometimes you got to do it, and it can be a bit nerve-wracking, and you're just afraid to say it. And the reality is, you're fine. They're not gonna fire you unless you're being a real dick about it, like, you know, you're calling them stupid too. But for the most part, if you're just saying, like, hey, look, this is not gonna work, like, it's fine. It's no big deal. The fear that you make in your mind is a lot more potent than the actual reality, and that's kind of the reason. As an example, horror movies are shot in a certain way. The better horror movies don't show the monster right away. There's a build-up, because by not showing the monster, they allow you to imagine what the monster can possibly look like. So the result is it's scary in your mind. So when you actually see the monster, you're like, oh, you know, it's not so bad. But by letting it marinate in your mind, you actually get to make the monster scarier than they can ever make it on screen. But of course, this leads us to the natural question. Even if our fears are imaginary, the problem is that fear is illogical. So even if we told ourselves that, it's very hard to overcome. So how do we conquer our fears? How do you do it? Well, thankfully, this question has been pondered a long time from a lot of different people. And there's only been really one solution to really conquer any fear. And that solution is action. So this comes from Never Finished, from David Goggins. And that is, when you deliberately and consistently confront your fear of heights or a particular people, places, and situations that unsettle you, those seeds germinate, and your confidence grows exponentially. You might still hate jumping off high things or swimming beyond the waves, but your willingness to keep doing it will help you make peace with it. You may even be inspired to try to master it. So David Goggins brings a very good point here, is that even as you conquer your fears, you might still not like them. It doesn't mean you have to like what you're doing. It's just you're no longer held back from taking that action. And there's something important that comes about of just this consistent confrontation with what unsettles you. Things that, you know, you don't like. Two, really. The first is you develop a resistance, a sort of callousness. And it strengthens you. So once you're able to conquer one fear, you know, the next one isn't so hard. Because you did it one time, why can't you do it again, right? You start feeling a little bit more confident. Like, yeah, there's nothing that can really stop me once, you know, it wasn't so bad. And the second one, and I think the more valuable of the two, is your character starts to develop. When you willingly choose to do what's difficult, to do what you fear, you're developing something within yourself. And what you're developing is worth more than all the money, all the gold that there is, because just like the ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but the quote is more important than his actual name. He said, character is destiny. So when you have a strong character, your destiny is going to be going in the right direction. That's really the point here, is that one, you're able to develop a sort of strength to conquer fear after you're able to get over one. And the second one is you develop character, and character is everything. Character will determine your discipline, it will determine your follow through, it determines a lot of things. So having a good character is placing yourself in a very great position. But perhaps some people, this kind of isn't enough. And so you can channel actually different emotions in order to generate action. And so just to provide a different perspective, instead of just saying, act. And for some people, they might be able to form themselves a sort of inner dialogue to say, like, you know what, I just need to do it. I need to push myself towards it. Let me give you a perspective of someone who channels anger, kind of a thing. And this is also a great way too, because you don't want to, there's an important concept to not just know, let's call it push-pull factors. And so you know where you want to go to. You want to put yourself in a position where you're conquering your fears. But you also want to know what you are running away from. And you can, if you want to take it this direction to generate some action, and it helps me a little bit, you can go this route. And this comes from Non-Negotiable from Wes Watson, 10 years incarcerated, creating the unbreakable mindset. If there's no progression, there's no pride. And if there's no fucking progression, there's only regression. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no stagnation. When you regress, you choose to regress. You know what you're doing to yourself. It's no secret. The second I choose not to live my fucking plan or follow through with my fucking vision, my self-talk goes negative too. What's the difference? I automatically call myself a bitch, negating any doubt and fear that develops within by taking immediate action. I owe everybody out here the strength that I can give by living it, by personifying the teaching. And no, I don't fucking mean telling people how to live. I fucking show them. And this Wes Watson, again, it's a very much more aggressive tone, but sometimes people need that. People need that aggression. And it kind of just chooses to what aligns with you. Some people have that kind of personality. I personally don't to that degree. I do sometimes get a bit harsh with myself, and I think that's good. But I can't keep it up. If you ever watch Wes Watson's content, he manages to stay in this naturally aggressive tone. It's just who he is, and some people can channel into that kind of primal rage. I'm a bit more cognitive, so that's not kind of the things that drive me. But certain elements of this resonate with me. For instance, I owe everybody out here the strength I can give by living it, by personifying the teaching. And no, I don't fucking mean telling people how to live. I fucking show them. So for me personally, one of the biggest things impeding me from starting this is that, one, I've just never felt that I was adequate enough to kind of go through with this, and two, I don't really like talking. Believe it or not, with the length of some of these videos, you'd think, oh, Patrick loves to talk. He just goes on and yaps. No, in reality, I'm actually very quiet. And it took convincing, saying like, well, what's the point of me talking? Well, through enough just saying, it's like, what I have to share is valuable. With the perspective and the way I word things, the way I'm able to draw these different resources is a valuable thing. And it took a good amount of time to get to a point where to do that, but that's the overcoming. That's the willingness to confront the things that bother you. Just, yeah, it's for everyone, it's different what's going to be the case. But it usually comes with putting yourself in the spotlight. And it's not something that I've ever enjoyed. I've never liked the spotlight that much. I always try to go off into the corner or leave any situation, because I usually prefer the quietness, the peace, but that's not what you can do. Sometimes you have to confront the things that you don't like, and that's what I'm doing in the sense through these videos, and hopefully in whatever arena you want to do, whatever you are trying to compete with, because we all have different purposes here. We can't do the same thing. You end up developing that kind of strength, putting what you want, putting yourself in those situations where ultimately you are going to grow more. And so whether you like Wes Watson's approach, or you like David Goggins, or whoever you come across with have something motivational, at the end of the day, use whatever resonates with you for motivation, but act immediately. Whatever you find that motivates you, use it to act. You want immediate action. The more you're able to think on what you're choosing to do, the more chances you're just increasing the chances of you talking yourself out of it. So it's better to just act right away as soon as possible in order to just use that momentum to carry you forward. Now, you don't need to do the craziest thing. You might be afraid of heights. I'm not saying go jump out of a plane, but maybe just go on a roller coaster or something. I don't know. Whatever the case is, maybe it's not the biggest roller coaster, but you're working your way there. You don't have to jump from the highest peak right away. You can start building yourself up by taking little actions that you're afraid of. Remember, you are destined for great things. All of you have the potential to do something great with the time that you have on this rock. Don't let fear, don't let self-doubt, don't let inadequacy or feeling that you're going to alienate people won't understand you and look at you as weird. Don't let those things hold you back. You just want to act and be in alignment with the higher self that exists within you. Anyways, that's been today's discussion on fear. Hopefully you liked it. Stick around. We'll have a bunch of other things to cover. As always, this is Patrick from DataBytez. Stay data driven. Have a good one. Bye.